This is Athletes as Educators with former pro basketball player, championship winning coach, and author Angela R. Lewis. Angie Lewis interviews current and former athletes who are passionate about sharing the lessons they've learned and the experiences that have shaped their lives. Welcome to the Athletes as Educators podcast with Angela R. Lewis.
Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the new season of Athletes as Educators podcast produced by the Global Athlete Media Network. It's hard to believe that 2016 is over and we're headed into a new year already. As we know, 2016 was filled with excitement in the sports world, from the Olympics to the Golden State Warriors beating the 96 Bulls record. Then there were legends like Tamika Catchings, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, all retiring from professional basketball. In addition, never before in my lifetime did we see athletes using their platforms to engage in social activism. Most notably, of course, was Colin Kaepernick's decisions to sit during the national anthem, which caused a ripple effect with other athletes from all over the sports world. And then there was LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul. They opened the ESPYs with their perspectives on police shooting of black men throughout the country and created this call to action. And then also in the WNBA, we had players collectively create this media blackout. And they were fined by the league because they were fined by the league. And then the league later rescinded those fines. But these players were trying to raise awareness again about police shootings. And so connecting with the community is at the heart of what the WNBA does. And so it makes sense why the players will take this collective stand. The pictures of them standing in unity were extremely inspiring. And so all of these different things that happened throughout the sports world last year were really influential. And some of it has created this catalyst for the shifts that I'm going to tell you about with the podcast. As you know, last year I went on a journey of interviewing about 80 people. And I recognized that there were 4 major themes that continue to show up throughout the conversations that are going to really lead into the conversations for 2017. But before we dive into those themes, it's really important that you know the initial reason for this podcast. I really started this podcast to help parents and student athletes better understand the college recruiting process. As you know, I was an NCAA Division I athlete. I played college basketball at St. Louis University. After playing ball at St. Louis U, I played overseas in Germany. Then I came back, went to grad school, coached college ball, and then even coached professional basketball with the St. Louis Surge. And over the years, parents have constantly asked me about the recruiting process. And so I decided to talk to people who've been there, who had actually played college ball, who had either gone on to play professionally or they had gone on to work other careers. And I wanted to ask them about what their experiences were like so that parents can have real advice from real people who've gone through it, because there's so much content out there and they don't always know where to get good information. And as I began to interview more and more people, I realized that there was significantly more depth to these conversations. And people really cared more about the world and more about life and more about sharing their experiences than they did only about this college recruiting process. And as things happen in society and current events happen that were around sport, we began to engage in these conversations. And so I decided that moving forward, we would really change the format of this podcast in a way that creates even more impact and more of an opportunity for people to share their life experiences. And so it's with sincere gratitude, and I'll forever be grateful for everyone who said yes to be a guest on the show. I've learned so much from you all. I've grown so much as a person, and it has ignited this fire inside of me to have more stories being placed on this platform and to have more people sharing what they're passionate about. So here's the plan for 2017. We are going to release 4 shows per day, and each segment has a different theme. And these themes are directly based on what athletes and sports professionals talked to me about last year. I'm a bit of a nerd and I love content analysis. And so this really helps me better organize our segments and help you all better know what's coming and what you can expect from the different segments. So the first theme is books. I love to read. I love to write books. As you know, I've published 2 books, The Game Changing Assist, 6 Simple Ways to Choose Success, and Post Moves, the Female Athlete's Guide to Dominate Life After College, which was a combination of stories from other athletes. And so I love books. I love to read books. I love to talk about books. I love to listen to audiobooks. And so the first segment that you all will hear every day will highlight a current or former athlete or sports professional who's an author. For example, I interviewed Brandon Williams. He's a former NFL player from St. Louis, Missouri, but he has a book called Millionaire Mindset. I'll never forget, I read the book on vacation one summer, and it really changed my perspective on money and finances. And he's a former financial advisor, but we'll dive deeper into his interview another day. But the first segment, like I mentioned, will be about books, and I'm excited for people to really gain some wisdom from people who have experience. The second segment will be business leaders and entrepreneurs. There are a number of people I interviewed last year who own their own businesses. They're former athletes who are using that passion, that competitive edge to grow their successful businesses. One of the people who I interviewed is Anita Maxwell. She has a company called Successful Living. And Anita is a former WNBA player, was one of the most recorded, she was the first player. This is what I mean. She's the first player in NCAA history to score over 2,500 points, grab over 1,000 rebounds, and 300 steals. I mean, Anita was a beast on the court. She played in WNBA, played overseas, but her company is about financial management, financial advising. And essentially, she is a coach, and she really helps guide her clients. So you'll hear a lot from Anita and why she's passionate about it. And you'll hear from other people as well regarding the businesses that they have and what made them start those companies. The third segment that will air every day is one that's really close to my heart. It's about social justice. And I didn't talk about this a lot last year, but a lot of the work that I've done has been around young people and social justice and advocating for opportunities for them. And with all of the interviews last year and considering everything that happened last year, there were a lot of athletes who used their platforms to advocate for others. And one of those people who I talked to last year was Laisha Clarendon. Laisha plays for the Atlanta Dream. She's a point guard for them. And Laisha is an advocate for LGBTQ rights. And she's really passionate about helping the faith community and the LGBTQ community come together. And so love talking to her, but there are a number of other athletes who had different causes and different things that they are passionate about. And so we're going to bring you a segment all about social justice, all about activism, all about how to leverage that athlete brand to really make an impact in this world. And then the fourth segment, which is somewhat similar, but a tad bit different to the third, is philanthropy. Social justice and philanthropy aren't one and the same. They could be connected, but they're not one and the same. The philanthropy section may be the one that I was most inspired by last year because I didn't anticipate talking to so many current and former athletes and people in the sports world who have literally created nonprofits, or they're the face of a specific nonprofit or a specific cause, and they really want to help youth. For example, Caleb Thornhill, who works with the Miami Dolphins, who I had the opportunity to go out to Lansing, Michigan, and be a part of their nonprofit. It's called Apex Academy. It used to be 4th and 1. And Caleb and Travis Key, who's his former college teammate from Michigan State, started this football camp for under-resourced young men in their community. And it was so much more than football. They did ACT prep, resume writing. There were guest speakers. Eric Thomas came in and talked to the students, people from Quicken Loans. I mean, it was amazing. They spent 2 hours on the field, and then the rest of the time was doing this personal, professional development for these young men. And it has grown over the years. So we're going to hear from people like Caleb. And there are a number of them who've created nonprofits or are giving scholarships, or they're giving things to people that's really going to make an impact on their life in a really, really positive way. So these 4 themes that emerged are athletes, or sports professionals who are authors, for our first segment. Our second segment are athletes or sports professionals who are entrepreneurs, business owners, or business leaders. Our third segment, athletes who care about social justice and activism, will be our third segment. And then our fourth segment are athletes or sports professionals who really care about philanthropy and are doing some work around the community. In an effort to bring more inspiration, positive action, and love to the world through sports, we're going to release these segments that I previously mentioned every single day. So in the mornings, you're going to hear about athletes who have written books, and then we're going to give some writing tips. You're going to hear about sports professionals and athletes who have businesses, and then ways that you can make your business better. You're going to hear about athletes who are passionate about social justice, what they're doing to create change, but then also how you can get involved. And lastly, you're going to hear about athletes who are committed to philanthropy and what he or she's doing to leave a legacy, and then how you can get started with some nonprofits or some other organizations in your area. So be ready to tune in, take notes, and be moved to action. Again, thank you for your support, motivation to provide a platform that encourages sports figures to share their experiences authentically. On the network today, we're going to recap the interviews from Anita Maxwell in our business segment. We're going to recap Laisha Clarendon, as I mentioned earlier, about social justice. And then we're going to recap Caleb Thornhill in our philanthropy segment. Be sure to visit globalathletemedia.com for show notes. You can listen to us in iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and we're excited to have you a part of our community. If there are some athletes that you know who fit into these 4 segments who you think would be great, shoot me an email at info@globalathletemedia.com. Again, that's info@globalathletemedia.com. We'd love to hear from you and would love to hear from some athletes who you think would be a great fit. Thank you.
This is Athletes as Educators.
Thank you for listening to the Athletes as Educators podcast. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode